Today on the show, we have Terrence Murphy from EXP in Texas. Let me tell you all about Terrence. Now, Terrence was a second-round NFL draft pick by the Green Bay Packers after graduating from Texas A&M University as a three-time academic All-Big 12 student athlete. Now, Terrence, this is amazing, has brokered, if that wasn't amazing enough, Terrence has brokered $1.1 billion in sales volume over the last 10 years. He currently owns 20 companies, actually more than 20 companies, under the Terrence Murphy Companies brand. And Terrence is an investor in more than 30 companies as a venture capitalist. Now, investing in real estate is one of the things he is most passionate about, as he currently owns over 400 beds of residential real estate and commercial properties all over the US. Terrence is also a two-time winner of Inc. 5000 Award for America's fastest growing privately owned businesses, and also is a three-time recipient of the Texas A&M Mays Business School Aggie 100 for 100 fastest growing businesses in the world. Terrence possesses the same traits that he portrayed on the football field, which is integrity, passion, hard work, dedication, loyalty, desire to succeed, and excellence, all of which help his businesses continue to grow and his clients to receive superior service. To learn all about Terrence, and by the way, he has a podcast that he just launched as well, because of course he does everything. But I want you to learn all about Terrence at his website, which is Terrence Murphy. And I'm going to spell Terrence because it can be spelled many different ways. And by the way, we're also going to have a link to this in the show notes, so you don't have to type this in, just go to the show notes and click. But if you are typing it, it's Terrence, Terrence Murphy.com, and you can see all of the cool things that Terrence does. And you can also follow him on Instagram, which is at Terrence, again, Terrence Realtor. Also, a link to that will be in our show notes. Terrence, welcome to the show.
Man, appreciate it, man. Sorry about the long intro my team sent you. But at the same time, they always laugh because they're like, well, hell, you're doing so much. We have to make the intro that size. So it's fun, man. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you. And I love reading long intros like that. Well, sometimes it is funny. Sometimes people we interview will send us things that we have to pare down because we're like, okay, nobody cares about this and that. Everything that you guys sent over was things I'm like, I have to talk about all of this, because this, I think, it was very concise. You just do a lot. And I think that I'd love to talk to you about, the fact that you run so many different businesses, you have so many different interests, you're a busy guy, and at the same time running the successful real estate practice. But before we get to sort of where you are today, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got to where you are today. So I'd love our audience to hear about, sort of your football career and then how you transitioned into real estate.
Yeah, man. So born and raised in East Texas, grew up with a single mom. And so for all the kids that grew up with single moms, and for all you real estate agents that are single moms, I love you and I'm proud of you. And so, yeah, I just grew up with a single mom. She put a lot into me, encouraged me, pushed me, and was very hard on me. And that's the way that I've become who I am as an entrepreneur and as a student athlete and as a professional athlete. And then just having the heart to help, right? Because I've lived that life where we went not having everything. And so I just have the mentality to try to help them. Like we talked about earlier, DJ, life is like a boomerang, right? What you put out, you get back. And not only do you get it back with precision. And so for many years, I've encouraged real estate agents. I've coached them, I've pushed them, I've given them tools. And now I've been able to see the benefits from those seeds that I set as people are starting to join my organization at EXP like crazy. So it's been cool. But yeah, grew up there, went to Texas A&M, football scholarship, got drafted by the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, and back-to-back NFL MVPs as my roommate, my bro, and he's killing the game. And then I retired and moved into real estate and just grew a passion for it. And it started off as a developer and an investor, got my license with the Keller Williams for a year, which we all do. Left Keller Williams, started an independent brokerage, TM5. I told people I was going to scale my independent startup brokerage. This was in my early 20s with no experience. I did 7 transactions when I started TM5. And I said, I'm going to scale it to $1 billion in sales in 10 years. I actually did it in 8. And people were like, there's no way. You're in a small town. It's not possible. You need a franchise. And we did. And that's how I got into real estate after retiring from the NFL.
It's incredible. And I know you're skipping over about a million steps along the way, but I love the fact that here you are. And this idea of scaling is so important, especially now where I see agents flocking to teams. Teams have become more and more important, more and more prevalent, more attractive, I think, over the years. And we're seeing this flock to teams. And I'm interviewing a lot of people for the show and also just here for our brokerage in Chicago that are struggling with scaling, trying to figure out, how do I go from being like an individual producer to running a team, then to scaling the team, and those are different skill sets. And was that difficult for you to go you said you had just done 7 transactions. You're like, I'm building a team. I'm gonna scale this thing up to $1 billion. Well, let me ask you a different question. What gave you the confidence to think that that was possible within 10 years? Because it really shouldn't be possible, at least, to the sort of more logical mind, right? That shouldn't be possible, yet you did it, and you did it faster than you thought. So what gave you the confidence and the courage to do that when really all signs were pointing to it's going to take longer than that?
Yeah, or even be possible at all, right? I think for me, that goes back to just that background of, I told people when I was 5 years old, I remember having a picture of me. My mom bought me like one of those little uniforms, and that was my Christmas gift. And I remember telling people at 5, I'm going to make it to the NFL. And so can you imagine from 5 to 22 for 17 years, you're telling people something that is merely impossible if you look at the numbers.
Absolutely.
I mean, it literally is no way, just from a number standpoint, you should make it to the NFL. And so not only to make it, but to make it in the first 2 rounds. So I had already been there before, right? Holding on to a dream that coaches, opponents, family members, teammates, whoever tried to talk you out of it, like, hey, that's not possible. It's not real. You might want to do something different. And you just keep fighting for it, man. You keep holding on to it because you know within your heart it's possible. So when I achieved that dream at 22, I tell people, I'm okay with playing the long game. It took me 17 years to achieve a dream, right?
Right.
And when I tell people one day, like I said, hey, I'm going to go D1 in college football. Well, at that time, this is crazy, DJ. My sophomore year, I was the only sophomore in varsity. We went 0-10. We didn't win 1 game. My junior year, we went 1-9. So going into my senior year, we were 1-19.
Yeah.
We hadn't signed a D1 recruit in 10 years, and I'm telling people I'm going to go D1. And I ended up leaving my high school with 20 D1 offers. And then I actually had about 7 full-ride academic offers to like Rice University, UNC, places like that. So I've been there before. So in my mind, when I feel it and I pray about it, I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I don't even think about the other option of not doing it. And I always say, put me in a desert, I'll find my way to the water. That's just the way I'm wired. And I think that's what people are seeing now as I'm growing one of the fastest organizations in the history now of EXP, is because I'm giving people a roadmap to get there and get there with the right tools.
Yeah, boy, you just said so much in such a short period of time there, because really you talked about perseverance. You talked about singularly focused, like almost like when they put the blinders on. It's like, hey, I'm going to achieve this. And there's certain things that were really outside of your control, right? You talked about the record in high school, like not great, not your record, but just the overall team record. There was no history of D1 players, in any recent history from that school, and yet you did it. And I'm guessing because you were singularly focused. I imagine, and if you hadn't have been drafted 2nd round, I imagine that really wouldn't have changed much for you anyway, because you would have just pivoted and pointed your North Star at something else and made that successful. So I imagine, is perseverance, how important is that to you? I mean, I imagine it's got to be pretty important.
Perseverance is very important, but what I will tell you is, the great thing about athletics, the great thing of growing up with a single mom, the great thing with my background is day in and day out, you have to get up and you have to work.
Yeah.
And, I had successful businesses as an entrepreneur in middle school. Like when I was 12 years old, I had like different businesses that I was running. And so just the mentality of, I don't wake up with it's not possible. I'll wake up with, okay, how am I getting there? Like right now,
Yeah.
what steps do I have to take day in and day out? Like there's a great book, Atomic Habits, right? It's just,
Love Atomic Habits.
oh man. And so I think the reason why, I've been coaching real estate agents now for 10 years. And two things I always said no to is people would ask me to come train their agents. And I would say, I can't do it. I don't have a coaching business. Or can I invest in your real estate projects? I didn't raise money and I didn't have time to teach. So I would just teach my agents. But as I've now started expanding my coaching services, people are blown away. But the athlete in me and the coach in me, I can give you very practical tools that it doesn't sound like, man, I got to do all of that to get there. It's like, no, just do this for the next 30 days. Yeah. And once we get to 5 million in volume over the next year, and here's how you get to 10 million, and here's how you get to 18. One of the things I took pride in is I'm real big on studying statistics. And once I see statistics, and then I say, okay, the average agent closes 7 to 10 deals per year. How do I 5X that with my team and my brokerage? And so for the 10 years that I ran an independent brokerage, we averaged 39.5 transactions per person. So our per person production was at 40 deals per person in the building.
Amazing.
And so we were so focused on just everybody being very successful versus just growing the numbers.
Wow. I mean, it is truly incredible. And you're right. This idea of seeing what is possible, because there are people that do this, right? Like you're not the first guy to 5X, a team's productions, although you're probably one of the first people to do it, but you're probably not the first. There's other people that have done this. You can study some of their habits. Oftentimes you could just reach out to these people and ask. That's what I do on the show. I'm reaching out to you right now to share, your secrets with our audience. So it is incredible. How important was it? You've had coaches, throughout your entire academic life, starting from as early as when you really got into athletics as a young man, and then all the way through, high school, college, professional athletics. And then how important is it to be coachable? Because of course you have the perseverance, you've got the discipline, but having a coach, how important is that?
I think the biggest misnomer about coaches that really shocked me, because from 15 years old on, I kind of got removed from the world, right? Like when we were on campus at Texas A&M, like they had us like over here, like away from,
right?
Because your day is planned out, and when you get to the NFL, like you see us playing, but no one really gets to personally interact with you. So when I got introduced back into the world at 22 years old, or 23, once I retired, I was just blown away at the unwillingness to be passionate about what people do every day. It was like, where am I at right now? Like, because we had the best doctors, the best marketing people, the best publicists, the best everything, the best nutritionists. So I just missed being around greatness, and that's what I wanted to create. And I think the biggest misnomer with that is that all coaches or all mentors have the right playbook.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of broker owners, and that's what blew me away. They became broker owners because they were not good real estate agents.
Yeah, so that's true.
It's like, let me hide behind the desk and say, I don't want to sell real estate. I just want to be a broker. Well, you were not selling a lot of real estate anyway. And so it blows me away. And it's like, hey, after the new year, we want to lose 10 pounds, and we show up and our trainer's out of shape. Well, then I got the wrong trainer. So I'm always telling people, man, when you look at getting a broker or a mentor or a team leader or a sponsor at EXP, really make sure they have the successful track record and that they can communicate it in bite-sized pieces to you to follow the breadcrumbs to success. And that's one of the things that I take a lot of pride in, building out the processes and the procedures to help people have the same or more success than I've had.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you're a coach. Do you also still continue to get coached? I'm sure people would love to hear that, if you do or not.
I don't. But here's where I find my coaching and my wisdom. In my Bible, and then I'm a book guy. I love tangible books, and then I just got into podcasts. So that's really where. But my books is like my lifeline. Like I read my books. I'm doing a 52-week challenge right now with my organization at EXP. So we're reading one book a week every week.
Wow.
And then we meet in the room 5 days a week, because I do everything by 5. We meet in the room 5 days a week in Clubhouse, and we go over that book. So there's a lot of accountability there. and it's been really good, man. So they're digesting so much information at a rapid pace, and that's been life changing for us.
Do you have, so far, has there been one book, and I know you're reading so many that I'm sure they're all valuable in certain ways. Has there been one, you mentioned Atomic Habits before. Has there been one in the last, however long you've been doing the 52-week challenge where you read a book once a week that's really sort of risen to the top of like, that one spoke to me more than the others so far?
I'll give you one, but then I got to give you five. Is that
Go
cool?
right ahead.
So the one I would tell every human being that they need to read is Untethered Soul.
Oh, yes.
Untethered
Yes.
Soul. Oh my gosh. And then he's got a new version of it, I think, Living an Untethered Life. But Untethered Soul really gave me for your, because as athletes, as real estate entrepreneurs, as these successful people, right? These brokers, these team leaders, these owners, we have to walk around with our chests out at all times. We got to be peacocks at all times. But some of us are broken, right? And some of us really need to be able to be in a safe place to communicate what we're going through mentally. But you don't. You got to put this mask on every day, right? And Untethered Soul really breaks that down. And that book is life-changing to where you realize like you need to be doing breathing exercises every day. We talk about hydration and sleep and all that, but no one's talking about breathing, how important it is. No one's talking about the mental aspect of life to be able to meditate and step away from this nauseous world of information and slow the brain down.
It reminds me of that expression. It's an old musical expression, which is, it's not the notes that make the melody. It's not the notes that actually create the song. It's the space in between the notes and it's like, oh yeah, of course, it's the space in between notes. Otherwise it's just one continual note. And that's the silence that we don't often give ourselves. I find, we have a device in our pocket. I was thinking about this weekend. I'm not the first person to think about this. It's not a brilliant thought, but it's almost like magic. It's almost like magic. We have magic in our pocket 24/7, and we can use that to summon up whatever we desire. And you have to be really careful because it's super addictive and it takes time away from being able to sit alone quietly and think and reflect. Do you make meditation or reflection a regular practice for you?
I have. We were taught to visualize as athletes, but we were never taught to meditate and breathe. And I think it talked about, in the US, we are the worst at breathing, right? Yeah. Our posture's terrible. Look at me right now. I need to sit up. Now I'm thinking about it, right? And we just don't breathe. We don't breathe well. We're continually throughout the day taking short breaths. And we're not taking deep, long, continual breaths. We're rushing to the next meeting. And I always tell everybody, that's why I started this whole movement of we have to become real estate entrepreneurs. We can't just be realtors. We can't just be brokers. We can't just be team leaders. We have to be real estate entrepreneurs. And when we become real estate entrepreneurs, we're creating multiple income streams. We're thinking about legacy, right? We're not just building a business for today. We're building a business that will give back to our kids, right? We're thinking about other people, and we're thinking about our mental health. We're thinking about the impact we want to leave. That's the real estate entrepreneur piece that I've really went all in on, man. We even had a day called Rejuvenate Day. I brought in all my agents, and we brought in a nutritionist, we brought in a trainer, we brought in a psychologist, we brought in Enneagram coaches, we brought in massage therapists, a yoga instructor. We started off with yoga, and it was a beautiful day, just really just putting them outside the box in this place of uncomfortableness to force them to think about these things. And man, I have so many of my agents that still text me, man, I'm still using some of the things I learned at Rejuvenate Day. So that's really what I'm focused on.
I love that. It's a holistic approach to being successful at business, because you're really talking about being successful in every area of life. Because if we think of our life as a circle or a wheel, if we got to make sure that we're pretty smooth around the edges. We've got to make sure that our family life isn't in the toilet if we're expected to do but our business life is going great. It's like it all has to be working pretty well. Not that we don't have ups and downs, because of course every single person does, regardless of their level of success. We all go through things, but this idea of treating not just the business side of it, treating the human side, and the breathing thing is so interesting, because we all know this. We've all heard this a million times. We need to slow down our breaths. We need to take deep diaphragmatic breaths. We need to, and yet I never really realized the benefit until I read some studies on breathing where, I have a lot of anxiety. It's just kind of, part of my
Yep.
DNA or whatever, how I was
I'm
raised or
here.
whatever. But regardless, there are breathing exercises that have been proven to reduce anxiety. And I'm like, oh, this is so great. I don't have to think my way out of it. I could do these deep breathing exercises that are super simple. And it's like, wait 2 minutes and then, oh my God, I feel better.
Yep.
So it is remarkable, but you're right. Taking short breaths throughout the day. Nobody talks about this in real estate, at least. It is really a big deal. And athletes are taught how to take deeper, longer breaths because of course you're also in peak physical condition, which helps. But beyond just working out, you can do this at your desk, you can do this throughout the day. And it really does center. I mean, it's the basis of meditation, right? Is breath. So boy,
Right.
you're saying a lot of really great things that I've had done a lot of these episodes that people don't talk about. I mean, certainly we talk about being physically fit and drinking enough water and eating right, but this idea of breathing and meditating and reflecting, I think we're in such a stimulus response world, and again, the phone in our pocket's going to try to grab our attention every few seconds. This is a way to shut that out. So
Yeah.
before let's talk about your podcast. I know this is new.
DJ,
This is
before
Real
we go
Estate
there,
Entrepreneur with Terrence
DJ,
Murphy. So tell us about it.
yeah, before we go there, I want to make sure that I'm following up for your audience because I told them I'd give them $5 and I'm real big
Oh,
on
I'm
that.
sorry. Yes, more books.
Yeah. So Untethered Soul, Why the Rich Get Richer by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a great book. Um, Atomic Habits, which we talked about earlier. Traction by Gino Wickman. So you got those four. And then Good to Great. Those would be the five I would have people read. And as we pivot to the podcast, I think more than anything, people realize that they need more, especially real estate agents. And you've been through a downturn, or I would say a recessive market or a shifting market. I think people will start realizing that again, that they need more. And one of the things that I teach my agents is sweat equity versus check equity, truly building a business with the right foundation versus just buying leads, right? I mean, we saw Open Doors, Zillow, Redfin. And so the people who was buying those leads, they're in these contracts. Real estate agents are stuck in these contracts. They're paying $2,500 a month, $3,000 a month, and they're not getting the same lead flow.
And even beyond that, what happens if and when Zillow's like, we're just going to be our own thing. We're going to have our own agents. We're going to do our own thing. We're good. We're no longer selling leads to agents. That day, and this is just a guess, but that day's coming. So I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I interrupted you.
No, you have the same passion for it as I do. They take our information from us and then sell it back to us. So I'm always trying to empower real estate agents. I have a very soft heart in a sense that I've seen so many of my friends. I worked with agents at Keller Williams when I started. I was 23 and they were in their late 70s and 80s still selling real estate. And that's why I would say, when have you been to a real estate agent's retirement party? They either get out of the industry or they sell real estate until they don't know what else to do. And that's what I'm creating. I'm creating the real estate entrepreneur movement where, look, I'll think about it. On a normal real estate transaction, there's about 20 to 22 companies that make money. Title, mortgage, survey, home warranty. I can keep going, right?
Inspection,
And so
appraisal, yeah, et cetera. Yeah.
it keeps going. So I'm teaching my people in my org how to buy those businesses and get owner distributions. I'm teaching them how to invest in real estate, how to start their first investment portfolio. Because my wife and I have bought commercial strip centers. We bought multifamily. We've done neighborhoods. We're developing neighborhoods alongside Jack Nicklaus right now. And so we've done it, and we're teaching people those exact steps on how to create multiple income streams.
Yeah, it really is the way to go. As somebody who, I'm not a broker owner myself, although I work hand in hand with our owner here, and he and I have created several ancillary companies to do exactly what you're talking about. Because for people who might not be realizing, especially people who want to start their own firm, what you might not realize, at least on the residential side, is brokerage is a very low margin business on its own. And to really make a nice business that might be sellable one day, you need to have these ancillary lines. And also they're just great ways to increase the bottom line in getting involved in title, maybe lending, depending on, what state you might be in, again, commission advance. There's a lot of title, like you were saying, along lots of different lines. You're absolutely so right, because I think people oftentimes want to get in, be their own managing broker, have their own business, and they don't realize what the margins actually look like. And then they're like, oh wow, this is not like, I just broke free from a Keller Williams, which is a great company, but now I'm on my own, I get to keep everything. And it's like, oh, and now I have all these other expenses as well. So it becomes tricky. But I think you're right. This idea of an entrepreneur is Robert Kiyosaki is sort of the guy who really made this as popular as it is this idea of residual income and creating streams of income that are more predictable, because as we know, real estate is transactional. It's so odd to me that no one has figured out how to make it a fee-based business like what financial advisors have done. Financial advisors is the smartest thing ever, which basically said, we're not stockbrokers anymore. We're not earning commissions. You're going to pay us 1% or whatever the percent, of all the assets under management. Real estate hasn't figured out how to do that. Maybe they never will. So real estate does become very transactional, and you need these other businesses just so that you can not freak out on the first of the month every month, right?
Yeah, and hit a wall, right? It's like this. I'm gonna create an image one day. I may even create a t-shirt, but it's got these paths, right? And they all have a hamster wheel at the end, but they make you think that this path is better than that path. So it's like, you're a real estate agent, you're a brand new agent. Now you become a top producer. Now you lead a team. Now you own the brokerage.
Yeah.
You've made it. When in reality, most of the brokers I talk to are the ones that are broke. It's called broker for a reason, right? And the margins are based, I ran a mastermind of the top broker owners in the world at one point, or in the US, sorry. And I ran it in the shadows, and no one even knew I started this group. But I told them the one rule I have is, well, two, if you're not going to be here, let me know. And two is, we can't talk about this in any public forum. So I was running a mastermind for some of the top brokers in the United States for like 3 years. No one ever knew about it. It was just you had Keller Williams, you had Remax, you had Caldwell Banker, Sotheby's, independent brokers in that room. And I coached them every week. And everybody was saying the same stuff, no matter what model they were in. So, and I think that's why EXP is the fastest growing brokerage in the world, because it's figured out how to give agents shares and stock. It's figured out how to give them new income streams, and it's a beautiful model. But I know we were going to talk about the podcast. I wanted to go back and hit those books.
Oh yeah, and thank you for that. And before we get to the podcast, I think what EXP did is really it's beyond remarkable, because the way I interpret it is they basically took the Keller Williams model and said it wasn't quite exactly fully realized in the way that Keller Williams, and I'm not picking on Keller Williams, obviously they're an amazing company, of course, but basically people left Keller Williams and said, we think there's a better way to do the same sort of thing with giving people more agency, more ownership. And so they figured it out, and holy crap, did they figure it out. They are, it's like the results speak for themselves. And anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the podcast.
Yeah. Last thing on that, I always tell people when they ask me, what's the difference? And I know Gary personally. We actually met years ago. We got introduced by Tim Howe, who's a friend of mine from college, one of their top agents, great friend, great guy. And we were supposed to meet for 5 minutes. And 3.5 hours later, me and Gary and Josh team, my wife was in the room. It was just us four. She checked out. She was like, y'all go with it. And as you can see how my mind works, me and Gary were just on the whiteboard, just going at it for 3 hours. And man, he's an amazing dude, sharp guy.
Genius.
Always love and respect for him, man. He's a genius. And so I always respect him. And he said, dude, I have 100, and at the time, 80,000 agents. He's like, you're different. You're special. I want to be a part of your story. Anything I can do to help you and Erica, let me know. So I always will respect Gary on that. I will say on the model, I would say you explain it this way. Profit share, if you take a P&L statement, where's profit? It's on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. And so this person got to be paid. This person got to be paid. This person got to be paid. And finally, we'll share the profit with the agents, where usually there's not a lot left.
Right.
Where EXP flipped it upside down and said, what's on the top of it?
We'll pay you at the top. Yeah.
Yeah. It's revenue. Sense. Yeah, so that's the difference. But yeah,
and they figured out how to do it. No one else had figured out how to do that. Now there's been a few copycats that are coming along, because they're like, hey, this idea of this rev share model works really, really well. So it is truly incredible. Yeah. So let's talk about Real Estate Entrepreneur. What's the goal of the podcast? Who are you speaking to? And by the way, everyone should check it out. We're going to have a link to this directly in the show notes as well, so you can subscribe right from the show notes. But tell us about it.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about a podcast, My wife has really been on to me about celebrating. Just the overachiever in me, I achieve stuff. I don't even stop to smell the roses. I'm already
Yeah.
on to like the
Yeah.
next hunt, right? I'm just a
Right.
hunter. And one day she said, you got to celebrate. I said, okay, cool. So we achieved a goal in our 20s that we wanted to achieve, which was buying a strip center. We bought a strip center in North Carolina, in Asheville. It's Buffalo Wild Wings, Starbucks, and different tenants. So we took a picture in front of it and I posted it. And like a week later, it had like 1 million shares. And I was like, what just happened? Like, well, how? And people were just so inspired by the story that we told, the piece that I posted. And that's when I realized like what I'm doing and how I'm doing it can help a lot of people. So people started messaging me on Instagram, Facebook, and I could not obviously keep up with all the messages. Do you have an ebook? Do you have a book? Do you have a coaching course? Do you have a podcast? And the crazy thing is at the time I realized, I told my wife, I said, we don't have any of this. Like we have no way to help these people. So that's when I said, all right, let's start this podcast. And so instead of naming it real estate realtor or builder or broker, real estate entrepreneur kind of embodied everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But the goal is to go after realtors, to go after brokers, to go after builders, go after investors, and just let them know these are the fundamental things you need to be learning, reading about, and putting in place in order to scale your business. Because the one thing I'm passionate about is scalability. I know how to scale things and I know how to grow things. And that's something I'm passionate about doing. So that's what the podcast is, Real Estate Entrepreneur with Terrence Murphy. And I'm just bringing in people to talk about that.
Yeah, scalability is really its own skill set. It requires the willingness to probably step away from individual production or to step outside of the constraints of individual production, and which for anyone who's a real estate agent is probably hyper focused on their own personal production or their team's production, and then trying to say, okay, how do I 1x, 2x, 5, 10x this, and which require a whole set of systems. So you're a data and systems guy really at heart.
Processing people is what we say in our organizations, because people always ask me, how do you own 20 companies and you're invested in another 30? Processing people. And the crazy thing,
go ahead.
Go for it, DJ.
So I have a question that I'm sure every single person on this podcast is thinking. How does this guy accomplish and do so much? This isn't me giving you a compliment, although it is a great compliment, but it's really how are you able to be a podcaster, an entrepreneur, run a brokerage? You own lots of properties. You have a team. How is there enough time in the day? So this probably goes back to scalability, but how are you able to sort of keep it all running when most of us are focused in one or two things and we're struggling? How are you able to maintain that focus with all the different, sort of ventures that you're into? And you're a VC. So I mean, we can keep going. You do a lot. How do you do it all?
I believe everything we go through in life is to be a part of your story. And when I was 16, my mom had a heart attack. And so at that moment in time, she made it through for a couple more years after, but I was working 2 jobs in high school. I was the team captain on the football team. I was in the honor society with a 3.8 GPA. So I'd already been learning these tools. And at 16, I drove myself to school. I fed myself. Like I literally was at home by myself. And so I kind of became an adult at an early age. And I didn't understand why I was going through that. Like, why was it so hard? But looking back, like those experiences happen for a reason. Same thing with my NFL career. I worked my butt off to get there. And I got paralyzed, man. I got paralyzed from the neck down. I had a really bad neck injury. And just working my way back from something of that, trauma, right? And just learning how to use your arms again and walk again. I had neck surgery and I'm like, why am I going through this? But it's not why. It's how can you use it to inspire other people? And how can you use it to be a better version of yourself? That's what I tell everybody in my org. You are competing with you. I want you to be the best version of DJ. Everybody else is already taken. So be the best version of you. And in that, my capacity grew. My passion for entrepreneurship and real estate grew. My one prayer to God when I was in the middle of depression, deep in depression at 22 years old, my dream was taken away from me. I can't walk. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. Is just give me a passion, God. Give me something that I can be passionate about And when he gave me real estate, that's when I knew, okay. So that's why when they hear me speak or they listen to me, they're like, dude, you just speak with this different conviction. Because when you're praying to God in the middle of depression and you're paralyzed, that God give me a passion and he shows it to you, there's no way I can't speak with conviction. So as I think through how we're trying to scale, I'm always challenging myself. The foundation of scalability is number one, you operating with the best version of your time. I call it TBS. Where is my time best spent on a day-to-day basis? So I literally meet with my team probably every other week about my schedule, which people would think, well, you kind of create it and leave it, right?
Interesting.
No, I meet and I refine my schedule every 2 to 3 weeks. And no one will tell you that because no one's doing that, right? But when people ask me, well, how did you learn that? Well, I learned it from, okay, if I'm a wide receiver and at practice, I'm running this route, right? And I drop the ball. Well, right after practice, I go right in and I put the tape on. I'm like, okay, if I would have just put my foot here and went this way, it would have made it easier. So I took that. All I did is take life experiences and I translated it into real estate entrepreneurship. So that's why when people are trying to study me, they can't figure me out. I'm an enigma because I'm pulling from life experiences. I'm pulling from books. I'm pulling from things that no one, I've taken the ingredients of my life and made it into a recipe. And now I'm able to listen to you. I can interview you, DJ. And the first thing, if you were going to work and be a part of my team, I would want to know your story. I want to know those points. And I can help you take those ingredients of your life and create it into a successful recipe to scale. So that was a long answer to say everybody's recipe will be different, but it starts with time blocking. And then once we understand where we're putting our time and how we're managing our time, then it's processing people. And that's it.
You know, it's so funny because we do want to make this more complicated. We want as individuals to think, oh my gosh, my life is so complicated. And yes, it can feel that way. And absolutely, I'm not here to say that, you know, my life is harder than anyone else's or more complicated, because of course everybody's their own unique individual and has their own challenges. Yeah. But you're absolutely right about this idea that what we have to do is constantly evaluate and not in a, oh, I'm worthless way, not in a denigrating way, but in a, where is my time best spent today? Where was my time best spent yesterday? Where did I, where was I not super effective? What's another skill I can learn? Just trying to keep the tools, actually not even sharpened, but adding more tools and more sharp tools to the quiver. This idea of reading 52 books a year. If every realtor read 5 books a year, just 5 books a year, in fact, read the 5 that Terrence recommended, but if they just did that, there would be massive change, because all it takes is 1 or 2 good ideas. And the fact that you're doing 52 books a year is going to scale you up even faster with that knowledge. So there's also a limit to how much time there is. So I'm curious so you talked about time best spent, TBS, this idea of here's where I can leverage the most growth within the shortest amount of time. And I also want to go all the way back to your story of, you had to become an adult much earlier than a lot of us, right? Because of your situation growing up. That's not an easy thing for a child to have to do, or a teenager. You did it. You stayed focused. You achieved, your professional goals up until, and then your life was, a lot of it, your physical body was taken away from you, really. Yeah. Just because that happens, things happen, and it's awful. And yet, here you are, you're walking, you're in shape, you're now running these successful businesses. But you also said depression is part of my story too. Like, yes, I am not a Superman. Like, even when, your whole career gets taken away, that's going to put anyone in a massive depression. So I'm curious I wanted to ask about one thing about support group, having a support group. And I don't mean necessarily a building that you go into and sit in a circle with other people, although that is a version of that. It could be friends, family, could be colleagues. How important is it for you to have people in your life that you can share intimately and be vulnerable with, and say, hey guys, I'm going through something right now. I am depressed, and yet I'm still productive. I'm still getting my life together, but this is going on and this is real. How important is it to have those relationships? And does that help you through the tougher times?
Wow, that's good, bro. Man, this is a really good podcast. If people aren't listening, they need to rewind this episode. I'm gonna go back and listen to it multiple times. So I think it's really cool, man. You know, the cool thing about it is I tell people all the time, I don't have a brokerage anymore. I don't really have a team. I have a tribe. Oh man. And I always say your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah.
Being you, the authentic you, not someone else. Man, like that's gonna attract the right people, the energy and the realness, not fake positivity. Like I don't want to be the guy in the locker room who's not gonna play a snap, walking around hooping and hollering.
Right.
Like just day in and day out, we see Terrence get up at 5 a.m. and hit it. And we see him at the office and we see him in the weight room or whatever, wherever you guys are at in your life. Like just day in and day out, just getting up and doing the work. But when you hit a wall, because we all hit a wall, you can be vulnerable too. And that's what a true leader and a true, because to me, when you're able to be vulnerable with the right people, and so that's why I say, man, having the right tribe around you and protecting that energy, like we're at a place now, we literally call it the zero tolerance rule. You can bring me any problem in the real estate team or organization, but it better have a solution attached. Because if not, then you're just complaining. And no one is allowed to bring any negative energy into our space. And if you do, we're going to call you out unless you have a solution attached. And just creating an atmosphere like that, an ecosystem like that, where there's a lot of successful people. And I tell everybody, leave your pride at the door. No one can come into this space. And when somebody has feedback to help you, have ears to hear and not just ears to reply. Because in so many times, everybody just wants to reply. They're just ready to say something back versus slowing down and truly hearing what the person's saying. And I think that's what we're so focused on right now. And in those situations of vulnerability and authenticity and real conversations, we can have a place where we can say, hey, you know what, DJ? Thanks for pushing me a couple of weeks ago and really getting onto my ass. I know I can do better. But now let's have this conversation. Man, I got a lot going on, man. This is what I got going on.
Yeah.
That's what
this ability to be honest and to be vulnerable is really, I found, very helpful when things get tough. Having people around who care and that you care about, it really helps keep it. But you're right about this idea of problems and solutions. I wanted just to go back to that for a second, because that is, you just challenged me, because I'm like most people, I'm a complainer, and of course, and there's always things to complain about. Nothing's perfect. There's always, I can complain about myself too, which is also not very helpful. But this idea of complaining is only helpful if you're like, and I think I can figure out a way around, or I can ask somebody who's been there before me. Like I have a personal trainer. You were talking about being in the gym with a trainer. It's like, I have a trainer because I don't want to hurt myself in the gym. And also I'm not a professional athlete and I don't know what I'm doing. So I've had a trainer I'll probably have a trainer the rest of my life, honestly. And it's because I need somebody who's like, do this, do this, do this. That's their expertise. I pay them for their expertise and I get the results. If I tried to do it all myself my whole life, I never got to the gym. Rarely. Well, sometimes I'd go, sometimes I didn't. It wasn't just something I was able to do myself. So I had to find leverage. I had to say, okay, well, if I want to hire, if I need to hire a trainer, I need to make enough money to hire a trainer, which means I need to scale up my business. So I totally understand this idea of looking for solution, and it's not always easy. Solutions are not always, well, they're not always right in front of you, but if you have a good circle of people around, sometimes other people can help you with your solutions too. And this idea of masterminding, we do this. I do the same thing with brokerages. We mastermind with other brokerages that are kind of similar to us all over the country, and are like, hey, what are you guys doing right now? Like, where are you guys struggling? What's working? just doing that alone has helped I get so many ideas. And I'm sort of shocked that so many real estate agents operate in a silo. They sort of operate in their own little world. They work from home, which I get. They're not really around other agents unless they're at a showing or something. And they don't often know, like, there's lots of great ideas out there, and all you have to do is connect with other realtors. What, how important is having sort of people that you look up to, having idols, not idols in the religious sense, but just having people that you respect, having people that obviously you're a reader. And you hung out with Gary Keller for 3.5 hours. Like, that's pretty cool. How important is it for you to get access to these people, and how much time has it saved you by reading something, learning something, having a conversation, so that you didn't have to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, I think at this point, if you're a real estate agent and you don't have someone who's achieved what you've achieved, because I always say it's one thing to get inspiration, right? Like LeBron James did a dunk the other night. I was like, wow, that's awesome. I'm inspired by it. Great.
Yeah,
but how
sure.
is that actually helping me, right? So the one thing I've tried to become is I don't want to just be an inspiration to anybody anymore. I want to be an inspiration that inspires you, but then I want to give you the breadcrumbs and the tools and the roadmap to go achieve the success that you want to achieve. So that other piece to the puzzle is what I'm building out right now, to truly give people the tools. So now they're inspired, but then they say, oh, and then I'm inspired, but now I plug in, boom. And then I think that's been the great thing now, because of running an independent brokerage, you kind of feel like you're on an island, to where now, like, that was the thing. I remember going to Cabo, my first EXP event, and it says making real estate fun again. And I get there, and every step I took, I knew a broker from being an independent broker. I just didn't know they were at EXP. So like every step I took, I'm like, whoa, you're here. It's like a class reunion. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And so, yeah, it's just been one of those things where, when you get to a place where everybody is successful, it's like flying with the Eagles. No one's really like hoarding the information. They're not like trying to hold back. They're just free with it. And then it creates that atmosphere. So I love kind of being in that atmosphere where we're all going to succeed. But it's like, all right, let's just put all of our tools in the middle of the table, and then you grab out of it what you want to grab out of it. Like, like a potluck, right?
Absolutely, like a potluck. And you're a competitive guy, but I suspect you don't view any other realtors or brokerages as competition at all. I suspect you won't. You said this earlier. I compete with myself. I want to be the best version of me. Obviously, you're paying attention to what other firms are doing, of course, because why wouldn't you? And you want to keep, introducing, more and more skills and different avenues, verticals to your business. But you don't see the other agents as competitors, I'm guessing.
No, not really, because my value proposition is so unique. I'm teaching real estate agents how to create multiple income streams. I'm teaching them how to build other businesses. I'm teaching them how to invest. I just closed a $45 million apartment, 240 units a couple of weeks ago. So I'm doing stuff where I can show these guys. And I started off, my first investment was two $75,000 duplexes. So you can scale. That's why I say I went from that 10 years ago to a $50 million deal, $70 million deal to $50 million. And they're just following the systems and the process and the breadcrumbs. But like at EXP, they rank the personal attractors, and out of 87,000 agents. And I've been at EXP now 16 months. I'm number 30. I'm in the top 30 already. It's been some people have been there 12 to 13 years or longer. And in the first year and a half or under 2 years, I'm already in the top 30 personal attractors. But I don't really get caught up in being anybody else other than myself. And any goal that I set is going to be well beyond what anybody can write down for me anyway.
Yeah. You're going to hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else could. And I suspect that is a huge reason you just have raised your standards. Your standards are up here, and they didn't start up here necessarily. They start where everyone starts, and you just kept inching your way up to where you're like, hey, I can run multiple things at the same time by scaling. Two final questions for you, and then I'll let you get back to running your empire. And I do consider it an empire, because I don't say that as just a nice thing to say, although it is, I guess, a nice thing to say, but it's really true. I mean, you're doing a lot of different things successfully, which any one of those things is difficult. And the fact that you do them all simultaneously with a lot of help, of course, is just truly remarkable. Two questions. One is, every agent I know again, focused on the present and the near future, is freaking out about 2023, right? We're like, okay, rates are where they are. This is bad. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying this is what the mentality is. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of sort of paralyzed agents going, oh, next year it's going to really be rough. What are you coaching your agents to think about? Because we can't control rates. We can't control inventory. We just can't. But there are things that are within our control. What are you telling people to do to focus to have a successful 2023?
Yeah, it's really cool. Like I said, I'm an enigma, man. People can't figure me out. I'm just I got my real estate license in the middle of the downturn. I started an investment company in 2008. So
it's the worst time to start an investment company, and you did it.
The worst time, especially to start a brokerage. So I look at this just like Warren Buffett says. He says real estate recession or stock market downturn, or what is it?
Recession proof.
Yeah, well, the real estate market, not a bear market, but a
bull market.
Bull market. There we go. Sorry, couldn't get it out. He says it's the only time that when something's on sale, people don't run to buy.
I know, it's funny.
You know what I mean? So like, but if it's First Friday or what is it, Black Friday, you get trampled getting into the spot. So I tell people you got to switch the mindset, and it always starts with the mindset, right? When everything, and that's what I'm always evaluating, is my mindset where it needs to be in order for me to go to that next level. Because you can have all the processes you want, but if you don't have the mindset to receive going to $1 billion in sales, or having 500 people in your organization or whatever it is, it's not going to be sustainable. You may get there, but you're going to go backwards. So what I'm telling my real estate agents is look at the opportunity that's at hand. Study your hyper local market. Is it REOs? Is it new builders? Because builders were fine when they were getting 18 offers, but now their agents might have gotten lazy, but they have to still keep selling houses. I picked up 5 builders in the 2012, 13 range, just because I was doing what their agents had got tired of doing. And man, I started having these builders hire me. Man, that's when I started scaling, dude. You're getting 40 houses per builder, 20 houses, 30 houses. And so you just got to think about, look at your hyper-local market and find those opportunities. Is it expired? Is it orphan listings, right? An orphan listing is just a listing that goes past 90 days. It's been expired. People have forgotten about it. And then you just create a value proposition that's second to none, and you pick up that market share, because the market share is not going away. It's just going to trade hands. So if we have the hunter mentality that we're going to go hunt and we're going to go create a value proposition that's second to none and a brand that's second to none, that's when we'll take that market share. And it's just a mentality shift, right? And last thing
you're not worried about 2023 at all. You're just pivoting.
Pivoting. You hit it on the head.
And I only wanted to say that because you're the only person I've talked to thus far who is like not legitimately freaked out. And I think what you said made absolute perfect sense. Yes, we'll just change. We'll look over here as opposed to over here, and we'll make it work. I'm sorry, and go ahead.
No, you hit it on the head, DJ. You picked up on it, because truth stands the test of time. When you hear truth, you're just like, well, there it is, right? Like, whoa, there it is. And so I think, once again, why people resonate with my message is because it's not a woe, it's me. It's not a I'm scared. I don't operate out of fear. I operate out of solutions. And at the end of the day, I'm excited, to be truthfully honest. I think there's a lot of people who have not been coached right. And when they realize they need the right coaching, they're going to come to people like me, and I'm going to give them the confidence and the tools to be a competent agent. I call it the 3 C's. Competence creates confidence. But if you got in the industry in 16, 17, 18, whenever, and you're getting 17 offers, you never really sat down and created the competence. Yeah. But now you got to go create the competence.
Yeah, and nobody likes a confident person who isn't competent. In fact, we all laugh at those people. We dislike them. Confidence needs to be earned through competence. And I think so. Here's my last question, my final question. And this will be a tougher one, maybe, or maybe not. What would you say to your 22-year-old self or 23-year-old self, as you're exiting your football career? What do you wish you would have known then that you didn't know, but you do know now?
think even bigger than I thought. And I was a pretty big dreamer and thinker.
Yeah, you were already a big thinker, and yet you were thinking too small back then, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I remember A&M came to me going my junior year, and I remember them talking to my parents about a Heisman campaign. Like, I was really playing that well at the time. Reggie Bush was doing really well, and Darren Sproles. And if you look at our numbers, my numbers were just as good as some of his numbers. He ended up winning the Heisman. And I remember A&M was talking about at some point coming to my parents about a Heisman campaign. And in my mind, I was like, me, Heisman winner, receiver at Texas A&M? And so I still beat myself up about that, because I'm like, you should have accepted that and been like, yes, I am a Heisman. I am one of the best players in the nation. And those are just those moments in life that I pull on now, where now when I think about an idea, I'm like, it's possible. And whatever it is, 5X it in your mind and then go for that.
Well, it's as simple as that. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? Like, I guess that's the point. It's hard but simple. This idea of being able to think bigger allows you. It expands your capability, right? It's a simple idea. Think bigger, and then the hard work comes in of trying to figure out a way through it. But you're absolutely right. We are, and we all know this, we're limited by our beliefs. There's that old joke of like, what is BS stands for belief systems, because it is sort of it's an old joke, but it's true. We're all wrapped up in our own BS, our own belief systems. And then you meet somebody like you, who's seemingly doing things outside of what we believe is capable, but you've been doing that your whole life. And so you have this track record of like, oh yeah, I got paralyzed. Yeah, that wasn't, I mean, I got through it. First, I got into college. I got into, playing a pro sports. You did all the things that were already impossible. So I imagine when challenges come your way, it probably doesn't decimate you like maybe it would somebody who hasn't had some of those challenges along the way. One final question: how important is failure? And when I mean failure, I don't mean, I just mean not achieving the goal you set out for, and how important, because I have a theory, or at least I've talked to a lot of agents who say they love failure because most of the things they do don't end up working out, but it just carries them over to the next thing that eventually gets them closer to working out. So how often, you seem like a guy who never fails at anything. I would love to know what role does failure play in your life, and how do you think about failure?
Man, it's a good question. It's a great final question. I think as I think about failure, I always say it's wins and lessons. There are no wins and losses.
Yeah.
It's only a loss if you quit.
Yep.
So I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
I'm going to win and I'm going to lose if I quit. And so as long as you keep going, there was a Martin Luther King quote. I know I'm going to butcher it, but he says, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep going. There it is.
Boy, I'm not going to do better than Dr. Martin Luther King, so I'm going to leave it there. One of the greatest thinkers of all time, and you perfectly summed that up. I think that's absolutely right. And also, the scoreboard of life or on the field is only the scoreboard. Even if you're victorious, it doesn't necessarily mean you played your best, right? And I'm sure you probably had games where you lost, but you played your best. And yes, it's no fun to lose, but to know that I did my best is really all that ever really ultimately matters, or at least in my opinion, that's what I found, is that you could win on the scoreboard, but if you didn't play your best, you just don't feel that good about that victory, right? So this idea of showing up, like you've said, be your best self. I know it's said a lot in our society, but actually measuring, what does it mean to be at my best? What does that actually look like? Boy, Terrence, you gave so much great wisdom on this episode. You need to get back to running your empire, and I have taken up too much of your time. So thank you for spending as much time on our show, talking to not our agents, but our listeners who are agents, about what it takes to be successful. If anyone wants to jump aboard the Terrence Murphy train, and you know what, if you're going to hitch your horse to a wagon, it's a pretty good wagon to hitch to. Check out all the stuff he does us because he is incredible and an amazing guy and just a great guy. So check out terrencemurphy.com. Everything Terrence related is on there. You can learn about his coaching, you can learn about his brokerage, you can learn about his podcast, and of course his story along the way and all the entrepreneurial efforts he is involved in. And if you're an agent looking to, get coached by somebody, boy, Terrence would be right at the top of my list. So definitely check him out, terrencemurphy.com. Again, that's TERRENCE Murphy.com. Also follow him on Instagram, which is Terrence Realtor. So at Terrence Realtor, we'll have links to all of that in our show notes. And Terrence, I am so grateful to you for coming on our show. I know our audience got a lot of value out of this. So on behalf of the audience, we thank you. We know how busy you are. We know you don't have time to do this, and yet you found time for us. Thank you. On behalf of Terrence and myself, we also want to thank the audience for continuing to support our show to make it all the way to the end. And we ask everybody to just do one thing. After you visit Terrence Murphy's website, terrencemurphy.com, tell a friend about this episode. Just tell one other real estate agent about this episode. Maybe somebody who's struggling, or maybe somebody that's looking for some sort of answer or suggestion to help get them through the end of this year and into next year, and shoot them a link over to our website, keepingitrealpod.com. Every one of our episodes can be streamed there, or just anywhere you can find podcasts. We are there as well. Also subscribe to Terrence's podcast, Real Estate Entrepreneur with Terrence Murphy. Link to that in the show notes. Terrence, thank you, sir. You are an inspiration. I'm grateful to you for coming on our show. You are the busiest man I know, and you made time for us. And so thank you. And we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Terrence.
Appreciate you, brother. I'm here if you need me on anything, man. And God bless everybody. Keep your heads up. Keep pushing. And the scorecard is measuring how many people you can impact in a positive way. Thanks, bro.